So, welcome to the second Salon de Puck, the second Puck Salon. My name is Puck, and if you haven't watched the first episode, this is just me playing music, talking about music. Most of it isn't planned, so I know roughly what I'm going to do, and roughly it's just going to have to cut it. As you know, there is two things that I'm preparing for each salon. First thing you already heard. This is the main melody. Last time it was Mozart's little serenade, and now it is this little nugget, which is Schumann's Reverie, Schumann's Träumerei. And I'm definitely gonna try and include this one in the salon more. And the second thing that I prepared, or in this case somebody else prepared it for me, is inside of that round box. Let me just play the motive in its entirety first. Yeah. So, by the way, any kind of mistake that I make is going to be left in. So whenever you see me make a cut, it's because I find it's boring or I had to think of something else to talk about. So like everything simple, like tuning the instruments, is obviously not going to be left in, and I think it should be tuned again. Usually whenever I'm playing a concert, I'm playing an improvisation at the very beginning, and as I don't have the audience to tell me what key to play that one in, I'm going to be making use of that little thing, because I'm going to be playing an improvisation on the motive that you just heard. Let's see, A major, okay? I think the original one is in F, but yeah. And let me do things a little differently here. I'm going to be playing with this one, and last time it was actually already hooked up to it. I have a little loop station sitting here, and I think I'm going to be using this one then. So there's that. So the melody that you just heard, I actually threw in because it is two in A major. Another one of Schumann's Kinderscene. So I think that the Träumerei is like the eighth of 13 songs in this cyclus, and I think in English it is actually Scenes of Childhood or something like that. And the Träumerei is, I think, the most widely known one. It's definitely not my favorite, but I picked it because I thought that most people might recognize it. My favorite of those Scenes of Childhood is actually the first one. It's von Fremden und Menschen, of foreign lands and people. And so let me just play that for you. And I think while I'm at it, it would be interesting because now I played both of these pianos technically at the same time. And what is rather interesting is that I actually never really used this thing for classical music, because I think that it kind of doesn't really fit when it comes to the sound. And I think you can just tell for yourself when I am going to begin playing with this thing, and then I'm going to be doing a cut and switch to this piano. So you're going to be able to judge for yourself. So I think that this is actually the first one of these pieces that I learned, and it's very nice because it has very recognizable melody. I think more recognizable than and more unique than the Träumerei, and it has a very interesting modulation. If you listen to it, I'm just going to be playing the chords. So this diminished one is a little weird. This is a piece that I played loads and loads of variations on. If somebody were ever to tell you that most of classical music can't be explained by chords or has like much more complicated progressions than jazz or pop music, I would beg to differ, because I think that most of Mozart, about 80% of Bach can be kind of explained by just a couple of chords. And there's so many examples in classical literature where composers make use of that. I would call it a feature of music, like of it being able to be pinned down to just like a couple of things that everybody knows and everybody can sing along. There's, I think everybody would know the Goldberg variations. It's this one. And then the same thing. Ironically, the same modulation as the B part from the Schumann piece, I just noticed. There is, okay, but with the Goldberg variations, Bach is like, I think it's actually 16 chords. I don't remember the second part right now, but it's all just these chords. Sometimes he switches it to minor, then it would sound like this. think. But most of them I like. By the way, I didn't play the Goldberg thing. I was just making up something because I never learned it by heart. But speaking of variations, I think that this is just a perfect exercise. If you, no matter what instrument you play, you can pick the bass, for instance. Then it would be rather simple. Like, let's switch it to another key, like, I don't know, A major or something. Then we would have like. I did something wrong here. Again, 1, 5, up. So I didn't really know what melody I was going to play. All I did was just, I obviously have my notation in mind because I'm using a different kind of music notation, and it makes it rather easy for me to just think of a modulation and play something according to it, a specific melody or a progression that would actually fit it. And I think that this was something that musicians back in the day did rather frequently, but because this is kind of a semi-improvisation, they more often than not didn't write it down. There is a Handelschakan with 61 variations, if I remember correctly. I think it actually predates the Goldberg variations, and it is the exact same chord progression that we just played, and it is super boring after a while. But I kind of think that it is supposed to be, because I more or less perceive it as a instruction for young musicians and young composers, showing, hey, you can compose like this, or you can improvise like this. I don't think that composers wrote it down so often because it was just super common. But the nice thing is that it's a super nice training when it comes to getting away from simply just playing what's written in the sheet music in front of you, which I think is super important because I think the human brain just works better when it's not constantly being told what to do. And as I said, it doesn't really matter what kind of instrument you're playing. Let me just establish a loop and then play something with a clarinet. It's probably going to sound horrible because it's cold and fixed to the wall. So, let me just pick a key. E flat. Okay. At least playable with a clarinet. So we have it doesn't really matter what kind of instrument you're playing. I think variations are kind of the go-to thing when it comes to putting stuff that you learned elsewhere, technique-wise, to good use. And it's also nice, like transposing and stuff like this. But I think, especially if you play a solo instrument that mostly doesn't busy itself with chords, like the clarinet, for instance, it's something super nice because it helps you think of the chords, because you don't have the melody in front of you, and you actually have to think on your feet and know what you're doing harmonically. If you're asking me how to learn that, I don't quite know. I think you just have to play a lot, read a lot of music, which is always nice, and it's also the process of trial and error. So just like finding out that some chords don't really go with the melody on that step and stuff like that. So yeah, but I think that this is really what is wonderful about music. Like everybody making their own experiences, then playing together. By the way, what I just did would be perfect for playing with somebody else. I just basically simulated a pianist playing with a clarinet player. Yeah, I think this is a rather nice thing. Speaking of chords, because today I kind of make it sound like I'm all about classical music, which I'm not. The idea of having a chord progression and like playing along to it is obviously something that most people would associate either with jazz, which last time I played jazz standard, I think I'm going to be playing another one today. But most people associate that with pop. The last time I briefly touched on that, and I quoted like a couple of chords from a Keen song, and there was a very sweet girl who reprimanded me for it and said that I have to play a complete piece. And I think, let me just, so that's the thing. You can find it right here. And there's a collection of pop songs in there that I really like. And I'm just going to be picking one. This is a nice one. It's it's Tom Waits' Ruby's Arms. I think I know it by heart. I actually started learning this thing by heart because it's my favorite songs after all. I just need to do something about the microphones because I can't sing in this one. Just a second. So, everything's set up. I was thinking of having the bottle dictate what, which is kind of fitting, giving Tom Waits. No, I was thinking of using the bottle for telling me what key to play in again, but with pop songs, that's kind of a risky thing because every singer has like a different range. I know mine. I think A major should be pretty fine, but still, when I'm like just practicing on my own, it's a super useful exercise to kind of go to your limits, try out different things, both for playing the piano and for singing. And here I'm kind of advertising the notation somewhat again. This is what the modulation that I'm about to play looks like in it. I think it would be super cool, just for the quality of the music, if a band is playing a cover and everybody would expect that it's a commonplace to transpose. Because, as I said, every singer's range is different, and every song that we hear on the radio is kind of tailor-made for the singers that first recorded them. So I think it would just be the best thing to kind of do the same thing for you and find the right key to play in. So yeah, but let me play this one real quick for you. Without the tremolo. I will leave behind all of my clothes I wore when I was with you. All I need is my railroad boots and my leather jacket, 'cause I say goodbye to Ruby's arms, although my heart is breaking. Hold on to your pillow can do now. Which is super funny because Tom Waits, he always sings and talks exactly like this. And this is very endearing and part of his charm, but not his entire charm. So, the thing that I just played is infinitely better in its original version. Let me get rid of the microphone first. So, check out the original version. It's not just for the voice. There's kind of like a trumpet choir in there, and it's really, really nice. And yeah, but back to the notation. So now I can have myself have another key. Whoop, 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 whoop. Hey, come on. C and D. I'm gonna go with C because it's easier. No, it's just super nice exercise if you like. Play it now like this. The B part would be. So if you see a modulation, just like try and make something out of that. And what I did before with the variations is actually very close to that. So if you see a jazz piano player play a piece and play a solo, or just the way that he or she is picking their voicings, this has quite a lot to do with how composers and soloists back in the day, which was kind of the same thing, I think, were playing improvisations, and and I think it's just best to try it out and not to stick to what's written on the page, because that would be rather boring. So, but talking of sticking to the page, because I am again running risk of losing track of my little main melody. Let me play that from the page. This is what it looks like in the new notation. Oh, and I'm gonna be using the bottle again. This is E major. Let's see what happens. F, that's boring, because the original one is an F. Let's instead pick G. See what happens. D. Okay. And let's pick a last one. C. That's very nice. Okay. So, the original notation would look like this. Again, what I just played from was this. And obviously, I'm making mistakes. I'm leaving them in because I would like not to sell you something, but to persuade you to try it yourself. And I think it would be just wrong to show you something that I practiced before. This is actually something that is something very important for the salons that are not practicing what I'm doing here. Because I think music should be something that obviously you prepare and that you play music on your own, but I think it would be so nice if, just like I can take a book and just read from it, I love reading for people, it would be super nice if it wouldn't be the common thing that especially classical musicians like take a piece, practice them for hours on end, but instead just like take something, improvise on it. I very much think, and I know that I actually have to practice these things more, that it would be even very much possible to side read, so see something and play it without having practiced it before, much faster with the new notation. Because what happens when I'm looking at that thing, I'm definitely not counting intervals, I'm looking at functions. And the more accustomed I am to a specific key, the more easily my hands find the chords that serve that function. And with other pieces, it is actually much easier for me. So when I'm like taking something from the Puck book, okay, let's just take a Mozart Sonata. This one is nice. It's Piano Sonata number 9, Andantino con espressione. So okay, the original one is in G. Let's see what I draw. A flat major, which I don't like, but so I'm going to be making mistakes again. Well, okay. So what you can see is that I obviously I know that key, but whatever I'm seeing doesn't really translate very well to my fingers because I don't play often enough in this key. And this one is easy. It's G. It's what it's in. So that would be. So, another one. D, okay. another difference that you're gonna make out rather quickly is if you look at the original score of the piece and my score of the piece, I am not using any kind of dynamics or like indications as to how the sound should be played. Obviously, I could just put them in the notation, so it doesn't have much to do with the notation. It just has to do whether you like that in your score or not. However, and that is something that very much reflects in the notation as well. I think that musicians should be at as much liberty as any possible. So I think that if you look at old scores, obviously it makes sense that the composers back then tried to fix as many details as possible, because I think they didn't have as much time to rehearse with the orchestras or with other musicians. And secondly, I'm pretty sure that the quality of these performances weren't up to par with today's performances, because they were like laymen in the orchestra, and then I can very much understand it that you like want to preemptively correct as many mistakes as possible. However, now we not only know the music already, but we also have, and that's the second thing, we have recordings. So if a composer really wants to make sure what he or she would like the piece to sound like, they can just make a recording, maybe with I don't know, like a sample orchestra or something like that. But there's a definitive way to have your musicians know what they are expected to play. Another thing I don't know is what's inside that box. If you watched last week's episode, you know that there's gonna be a vinyl record in this one, because I like to recommend them from time to time. And last week I traveled to the north, to the birthplace of my landlord with him, and we kind of rummaged through his old recordings, and he put one of the ones that we selected in there, but I don't know which one. Oh, this is a nice one. It's Supermax, World of Today, and coincidentally the song that I lost my virginity to, this isn't a joke, and the song is Love Machine. No, it's just, no. And this is a very nice one. I originally thought that it was an American or English band, but apparently they're German. And this is like 70s disco. I actually don't know too much about this song. It's a really, really nice one. Check it out. And I promised to play another jazz standard today. Let me pick something. As I said last week, I'm kind of sorry because I can't, when you look that thing up, I can't include most of the jazz songs' melodies, but because of copyright reasons and stuff, but there's still plenty of stuff in there. Oh, I can actually play one that I can include the melody to. It's because it's old enough. I think that composers have to be dead for like 70 or 75 years, and then their compositions become the property of the public domain. And so this is Walter Donaldson, My Body. I think the Lighthouse Family was something else. No, but there's a couple of really nice versions of that. I'm just gonna play it as a piano thing. Where's my bottle? And G, okay. And this is gonna be what I wrap everything up with. So, there was that. If you wanna listen to more of my music, there's always my webpage, which is puck.com. There's a little heart-shaped symbol. And by subscribing, you're gonna get access to the music archive. I'm actually still mostly having it centered around classical music, but I kind of got into electronic music. This is gonna appear rather soon. And speaking of that Walter Donaldson guy, I think the song is actually from the 20s or something. I kind of started getting into electro swing. And that's gonna be rather interesting as well. So, but I am planning on doing the salons, I think on 3 occasions in a month. Still looking for guests, and yeah, keep practicing.